So remember, this section through here is basically answering the question of why me, Lord? The church is under persecution, and it's difficult. It is very hard to even just do the work you're going to do. Remember I told you, most of them had guilds that they belonged to, so that if they tanned hides, they would belong to a tanning guild. If they were a tent maker like Paul was, they would belong to a group like that. You banded together and shared your crafts. If you made dyes, or if you were a herbalist, or all the different kinds of trades you may have had, basket weavers, okay? They would support one another. But the same thing I preached about in my sermon. If you were a little different, you know, that peer pressure, you got to fit in, you got to be like everybody else. And Christians didn't fit in because they did not want to participate in the emperor worship, by which they would have to publicly say that the emperor was their Lord and God. Okay? It was prevalent, it was big, it was powerful. Okay? Now, how would you like it? Probably have some people in here that love Trump, probably have some people who hate Trump, but how would you like it to be at, how do you pronounce it, Mar-a-Lago? I would imagine most everybody there loved Trump. And you didn't. See? Now do you get an idea what it would have been like to be a Christian in one of these cities, bustling cities? So if you didn't like Trump and you had to be at Mar-a-Lago to do some business, it's like you're on guard, you're watching all the time, you would be, yeah, and somebody's going to say, wait a minute, you know, don't you hang around with this guy over here and he said bad things about, you know. Wow. You would always be under a pressure. Even if it wasn't in your face, it would always be there. That is what we're talking about, the Christians dealing with. Sometimes direct persecution, but that pressure is always there. Okay. All right, I don't mean to get in political stuff with you, but I mean, that is very comparable to that thing. All right. So, we went through the seals, and here again, this is cyclic storytelling. We're going to tell again. Then we get into the trumpets, and we realize, oh, wait a minute, they're kind of doing the same thing. And then we're getting into the bowls today, hopefully. And we got to use our disciplined imagination, okay? Knowing that the picture is more than the picture. The descriptions have meaning, okay? So while we will go to the picture part of it and think we've got it, that's just the front. Descriptions have meaning, and some of those meanings we know. The seventh trumpet, we began last time, the satanic trinity, which is the dragon and the two beasts. And remember, he tells the nativity story, and the woman appears, and it's Mary, and she's about to give birth, and she gives birth, and Satan's been thrown down from heaven, and he comes down, his tail goes across the sky and knocks out a third of the stars. Okay, don't take that literally. Astrologists would say, yeah, no, that didn't happen. Okay, but it tells us how big he is, okay? And how that means how powerful he is. Okay? So if we went to a literal interpretation, just imagery, then we would say, yeah, this dragon's going to come and knock out all the stars and everything. No. They're talking, this is how big he is, but not exactly his size, how powerful he is. Okay? So that's how we interpret and begin to understand these things. And the woman gives birth, and he chases her. You remember all that happening? Yeah? Did you dream it one night or something, or anything like that? The red dragon has 7 heads, means complete, control. 10 horns represents his power. 7 crowns also represents his power. And then there's a battle between St. George, the traditional protector of Israel, and Satan's thrown down to earth. And what's funny there is he takes his stand, a firm stand, on the sands of the sea. The worst place to try to take a firm stand, right? You beach lovers know how that goes. Yeah. And this is a funny, it probably did to the early church what it just did to you. You chuckled a little bit. There's a little bit of humor woven in here. Big, mighty, this dragon that knocks out a third of the sky of stars takes a firm stand on the sand. Okay, so there's some things in here to show, yeah, it's big and powerful, but God is still God, and God is still in charge. All right, and then the beast comes up. Now, John writes about 2 beasts, and there's a reason for that. One comes out of the sea, one comes on the land. And you who are students and scholars of Job will remember the mention of the two beasts known to the Israelites, Leviathan in the waters and Behemoth. What was the big tusked thing that now they're extinct, but they're trying to bring them back? Yeah, woolly mammoth. So I imagine something like a woolly mammoth when he talks about the Behemoth. Okay, but the two beasts. So John knows his Old Testament, which we would call it. He knows his Hebrew scriptures, and he keeps making so many connections there. I don't have time to make all the connections for you. And some of them are lost, but he keeps doing it. All right, and so it has all these heads that represent the different empires, the Greek Empire, the Persian Empire, Babylon. And what is the beast? Rome. Yes. Okay, rising out of the sea. Okay, let's move along then. And one of its heads seemed to have received a death blow, but its mortal wound had been healed. In amazement, the whole earth followed the beast. Where else in Scripture do you note they said they listened in amazement, they watched in amazement? It's in the Gospels as Jesus began his ministry. And they were amazed at what he did. And they even went so far as to say, who is like him? And at the end of this, what is John saying here? He had given authority to the beast, the dragon had given authority to the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like the beast and who can fight against it? Now, we're not talking about a little beast here, we're talking about Rome. And they're saying, who can fight against Rome? Rome is so great and powerful. It has defeated all these others and incorporated. Maybe that's why it's a multi-headed, because when Rome defeated a country, they didn't wipe them out. They incorporated them in and took their strengths. Okay? All right. And so it's like, what can we do? Rome's so big and so powerful, what can we do? And I like what it says, Satan will frighten the people into disobedience. He will deceive them into unfaithfulness. Whew. Think about that. Christians being frightened into disobedience. No, Christians and everybody being frightened into disobedience and deceived into unfaithfulness. All right, so we have two beasts now. Let anyone who has an ear, if you're to be taken captive into captivity, you will go. If you kill with the sword you must be killed. Here is a call for endurance and faith of the saints. All right, so basically what is he saying there? He's saying you may be taken captive, and if you are, you are, okay? Don't take up the sword against them, though. Don't become like them, okay? My mother had her own way of saying that. She said, don't wrestle with a pig. You both get muddy, and the pig likes it.
You gotta wrestle with one, you gotta get in the mud.
Yeah, okay? But he's saying, don't take up the sword. Yes, they will come at you with the sword. Do not become like them. Wow, that's hard, isn't it? Because, I mean, it's tempting. When violence, when ugliness comes at you, your gut says, throw it right back. And to be able to rise above that, wow, it's still hard for Christians and everyone. All right, so we got two beasts, two imitators, or a better word is parodies. You've got the big beast, a different image there, the parody of Christ, but it's the Roman government. But he's amazing like Christ was amazing. And the people are, oh, okay, all right? Look at all that Rome can do. And in fact, when you travel the Mediterranean world, you're still blown away. Wow, you stand beside those gigantic aqueducts that carried water at the perfect grade over like 20 miles. I climbed up one of them. That's just amazing. And the perfectly laid little trough for water to go. And then in Laodicea, there are the streets. And one of them had washed away, whether by the work of the excavators, the archaeologists, or whether time had done that and they just left it. You could see all the plumbing network. And I'm blown away. The knowledge Rome had and the power and just the efficiency in so many things, okay? All right. Remember in pre-war Nazi Germany, they were saying the same thing, that the German intelligence and engineering would outpace the rest of the world. And everybody was amazed at what they were making. The Volkswagen and what was it? Not A1, but can't remember the names of the jets, the missiles. They weren't intercontinental yet, but they were working on that. Yeah. And they thought with that, and the world says, oh, wow, who can stand against them? All right? So we're seeing the same things. Same attitudes. All right. So we got these two beasts working hand in hand. We'll find out who that other one is that looks like a lamb, which is a parody of the Spirit, which makes Christ known. So to resist is futile. But it's also unnecessary. Anyone know why? Because Christ has already won the victory. Okay? So you don't have the power to go up against Rome. You don't have a power against the beast, but you don't have to have it. Christ has already defeated them. They just don't know it. All right. Now, what the image is, this one says he saw the other beast. This is just the introduction of the beast. It looks like a lamb, but it's got its horns and everything to show its power. The unholy trinity seems to be in total charge, and there's no hope for Christians. It looks like evil is winning, and God's ways are being marginalized, okay, and pushed aside. And there is very little that people can do, all right? You must be marked as belonging to the beast, or else it's going to be very hard to survive. And if God's people don't align with the beast, then the beasts are against them. And if people take a stand against the beast, then they will either be led into exile, as John was, where they no longer have a voice and no longer have family, or they are killed by the sword. Okay? And all of this is written in the present tense. Now, might not have been important to you, but a lot of people like to read Revelation as what's coming. But all through this section, he's writing in the present tense. He's not saying the day will come. He's not saying when this occurs. Remember when Jesus does that, in what is it, Matthew the 13th or Mark the 13th chapter? I can't remember Matthew or Mark. They're pretty close. Jesus is saying the day is coming when you will, two will be working in the field, and one will be taken and one left. But it's future tense. So those kind of apocalyptic passages Jesus leaves us with, future tense. John writes in the present tense. And which to me kind of undercuts the people who want to come in then and take Revelation and say, okay, here's the timeline, how this is going to happen, coming. Anyway, this new beast performs signs, convinces people, it's amazing. What is this new beast? This new beast is the local government authority, one way to put it. It's the local ones who enforce what Rome is about. Okay? Now, on any given day, I might not like what our representatives are doing in Washington, but I don't have to really worry and scratch my head too much and pull my hair out over Washington today, do I? I mean, it's going to affect me, right? What have I got to deal with? The local application of that stuff. All right, that's what the two beasts represent. The big beast coming out of the sea represents Rome. The lamb, oh, the sweet little lamb, it's just as evil. It's the pagan society in which they live that enforces all these harsh things, okay? Such as, they're the ones who want to know. Do you have your libellus with you today? This is what a libellus is. You see the piece of parchment up there? Official could come up to you and ask you to proclaim your allegiance to the emperor. In other words, you would have to say, he is our Lord and God, and I worship him. And if you don't have a libellus, then he signs this piece of parchment that you have made a public confession. And when you go down to the market, to Kroger, and you want to buy, they don't want to get in trouble with the local authorities. So they say, could we see your libellus? And you don't have it. And they don't want to get in trouble, you know. They don't want to be shut down. So they say, I'm sorry, sir, I can't check you out today. So what you going to do? You either comply, or man, remember what I said? If you stand against the beast is coming after you. We should be on our knees every morning when we wake up thanking God we have the freedoms that we do have. Okay, may not be what they should be, but to consider what Christians have had to face before us. It's amazing. And I'm not making this up. This is exactly true. So I put some signs up there. You had to have this. Nobody can buy or sell who doesn't have the mark. In your local markets, they may not have asked for it, but if you went to, when you go into these ancient cities, you see the agora, the shopping place, and they were beautiful. They would have covered, colonnaded sidewalks, the plumbing perfect in the perfectly rounded road, and then the shops off, and that's a Roman marketplace. So in the Roman marketplace, you better have it. If you're out in the outskirts and everything, you probably could find ways. The black market, there you go. Always been a black market, hasn't there? Okay, the mark of the beast is the number of a person, and its number is 666, or as some of the early manuscripts have it, 616. Interesting enough, Neron Caesar can work out to 666 using the numerical equivalents of the alphabet, so that we have Nero, the emperor of Rome from 37 to 68, who persecuted Christians pretty bad. All right. Now, he's using that as a reference because he's writing after 68. He's writing in past tense as well as present tense. Okay? So, I mean, I've seen just about every Democratic president and every Republican president, they figure out how 666 can be applied to them. Somebody's always figuring it out. You know, well, his mother's first name in her first marriage, maybe that's, you know, whatever. We want it to apply to the present or the future and pick out who it is. Well, we can do that to our own entertainment. Nothing wrong with that. But that's not what John was about. He was about showing them the power of Rome, and he used Nero as an example because that's fresh on their minds. That has just happened. Now, who's the emperor? Anybody remember? Domitian. Yeah. All right. Listen, it is such a dangerous time. I mean, you got to have this piece of paper that shows you've been faithful. You know, I tried to get them to do it here. That, you know, if you kept your ties up, you got a little piece of paper. But for some reason, the council wouldn't go with it. No, it's a tough time. So everything's got to be in code. So you're not going to say Rome. You're just going to say this great beast with these heads, and everybody knew those heads were. Each head was a successor to, previous to the Rome, and then it all combined in Rome. It's obvious it's Rome, but he never said it. Okay? So they would have had an easier time recognizing some of this than we do.
What's the significance of the number 6?
6 is not quite 7. But as a teacher, I know you knew that. But 7 is complete in fullness. 6 is like, in the New Testament, the word for sin is oh gosh. Just left me. It's a Greek word. Marta something. And it means to miss the mark. It comes from the field of archery. All right. To do it right is to hit the mark. And to miss the mark is to sin. That's marta. And that's the word it's used for sin. So 6 misses the mark. It tries to be, but it does. It's not there. I looked, and there was the Lamb standing on Mount Zion, and 100. So this is not the imitation Lamb. This is who? It's Jesus. That's right. It's the Lamb from back in the 5th chapter, or the 3rd chapter. I looked, and there was the Lamb standing on Mount Zion. Mount Zion is Jerusalem. Okay? Today, if you go to Jerusalem, you'll see the old city, you see the new city spread all around it, but in one particular part of it, it kind of rises up, and that is called Mount Zion. the high point in it, okay? But in the Bible, Mount Zion stands for Jerusalem, as Salem stands for Jerusalem, okay? All right, so you have these different names, but it all means the same place. With him were 144,000 who had his name and his father's name written on their foreheads. Okay, we have a little interlude here, a reminder. The faithful are still with him. Okay, you might be going a hard time, but he has not forgotten the faithful ones, and he has marked them with his mark. I heard a voice from heaven like the sound of many waters and like the sound of loud thunder. Remember how we talked earlier about in the thunder and everything, the voice of God? The voice I heard was like the sound of harps playing on their harps. And they sing a new song before the throne and before the four living creatures and before the elders. No one could learn that song except the 144,000 who have been redeemed from the earth. It is these who have not defiled themselves with women, for they are virgins. They follow the Lamb wherever he goes. Doesn't mean they're all female, okay? Virgin could be men or women, okay? It means they are not defiled with pagan worship. That's what that means. So translate it. That these who have been redeemed and who now sing the new song haven't defiled themselves by joining in the pagan worship. Okay. And they have been redeemed from humankind as first fruits for God and the Lamb. In their mouths no lie was found. They are blameless. Doesn't mean they're perfect, but they are without fault, without defect. In other words, they are like Christ. Now, anybody ever been at the beach and seen an airplane fly by pulling an advertisement behind it? Did you know that was in John's Revelation? You had no idea, did you? No, it's fixing to come up in the next few verses right here. So, they are flying by, and it's like this is a broadcast saying, eternal good news, listen. Okay? I saw another angel flying in mid-heaven, and an eternal gospel to proclaim to those who live on earth, to every nation and tribe and language and people. He says in a loud voice, fear God and give him glory, for the hour of his judgment has come. Worship him who made heaven and earth, the sea, the springs of the water. And another angel, 2 planes. A second, following, saying, fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. What's Babylon? You know it. Rome. Another, see? Can't say the word Rome, so you got to use other words. The great Babylon. Okay? Yeah, she has made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Okay. Yeah, she has pulled people away from God and made them come in and worship the emperor, so they have had to drink the wine of her fornication. Okay? There we go. So these are in this little interlude, there's a reminder. And you notice here, the verbal tense is past tense. So he's not saying God is going to judge. The judgment has already happened. And he's telling that God's taken care of it. It's just got to play out. So you've always heard that thing between D-Day and V-Day, World War II. What happened on D-Day? They stormed the beaches of Normandy. That set in motion all the difficult few months that followed so that you could reach V-Day, Victory Day, when they capitulated, the German. Okay? And but once they made that beachhead, they knew V-Day was coming. Okay, so that's what we have here. In the in-between time is what he's dealing with. Then another angel, a third, came along with a loud voice. Those who worship the beast in its image and receive a mark on their heads or their foreheads will drink the wine of God's wrath, poured unmixed into the cup of his anger. Boy, isn't this beautiful language? And they will be tormented with fire and sulfur in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment goes up forever and ever. There's no rest day or night for those who worship the beast and its image, and for anyone who sees the mark of his name. And give me a hold on hide in, okay? Wow. And he just pours it on. And think about all the frustration. Remember what I told you about a while ago? How hard it was just to live and the pressure you had constantly? Okay, remember I told you pay attention to the feelings in this stuff. So this seems like over the top, but think about the release. I mean, you just come in from 5 hours on I-26, okay? And you're pent up, okay? And you say, and your wife says, go cut the grass, go do something physical. Go, okay? Get rid of all that pent up anger of dealing with these people who won't get out of the left-hand lane. Right? It builds up. And you got to do something. All this pressure, this powerful stuff here, we can get literal with it if we want to. Bless you, do it, have fun. Revelation is not set to make the rules for living the Christian life or how God's going to operate. Revelation, hear me on this. Revelation doesn't lay out the rules for the Christian life or who God is in its totality. He's writing to a particular situation, all right? If you want to know who God is and the rules for leading a Christian life, you got to go to the Gospels. You got to read about Jesus, because Jesus is the most complete revelation of God we have ever had. And all other revelations have to be judged against what we see in Jesus. Okay? So if we see in Jesus one who is merciful and forgiving and welcomes the one who has failed, and then we go over to Revelation and say, oh no, he's going to smite you down, we got a problem. Okay? So bring what you read in the Old Testament about God and lay it at the feet of Jesus. Bring what you read in Revelation and lay it at the feet of Jesus. All right, and then we have another little pause here. There are 7 beatitudes or blessings in Revelation. We already read one, that was back up in Revelation, the first chapter, and it said, blessed is the one who reads aloud the words of this prophecy, and blessed are those who hear and keep what's written. Now we come to the second one. Blessed are the dead who from now on die in the Lord. Yes, says the Spirit, they will rest from their labors and their deeds follow them. It's like every now and then as he's writing, John's just got to throw in this little encouragement line, and there's 7 of them sprinkled throughout. Okay? So that's in there. Beautiful. That's read at a lot of funerals, and you can see why. Then I looked, and there was a white cloud, and seated on the cloud was one like the Son of Man with a golden crown on his head and a sharp sickle in his hand. What's the sickle used for? How many of you cut weeds or cut wheat? Not many people in here done that, have you? A few of you have. Yeah. What does that mean? It means it's harvest time. That's what that image means. It's harvest time and it's time for sorting. What did the Master say in his parable about the farmer who went out and planted the seeds, and the enemy came and sowed weeds on top, and the workers said, what do? Go in there and pull out the weeds? What did he say? Let them grow together and we'll sort it out at the end. What he said. Yeah. So there comes a time of sorting, and it's come. Oh, and another angel comes, another loud voice. They like to use their outdoor voices, don't they? Use your sickle and reap, for the hour to reap has come. The harvest of the earth is full swipe. So he swings his sickle over the earth, and the earth was reaped, sorted, wheat from the chaff, like Psalm 1. And another angel came out of heaven, and he too had a sharp sickle. Wow. This is where the term the grim reaper comes from, I do believe. Another angel comes, authority over fire, and he calls with a loud voice to him who had the sharp sickle, gather the grapes now. So we get in the wheat, we got the grapes, and they do that, and they throw them into the grape wine press, and they press, and it's trodden out, and the blood flowed from the wine press as high as a horse's bridle, and for a distance of about 200 miles. That's a heck of a lot of grapes to get that much wine. What is that saying? It's saying the uncleanness and filth of Rome's empire is so great. Okay? Don't take it literally. Everything wasn't covered with. But again, that disciplined imagination. What does that image mean? Finally, we get to the 7 bowls of wrath. I saw another portent in heaven. That means vision. I saw another vision now. Great and amazing. 7 angels with 7 plagues, which are the last. With them, the wrath of God is ended. So we had the seals, the trumpets, now the bowls of wrath. Taking us a while to get there, hadn't it? All right. I saw what appeared to be you got to hear this. The sea of glass mixed with fire. And those who had conquered the beast in its image and the number of its names, standing beside the sea of glass with harps of God in their hands. What's going on here? I've had some people say, is this an image of hell? Right? Looks like a sea full of fire. My grandmother would have loved to use that image on me. Remember I told you she backed me up to the fireplace and said, Stephen, she called me Senator. Senator, that's what hell's like. Okay? Yeah. Here I am, just a little twike. Okay. No, look here. The ones who've been redeemed, where are they? They're on the other side. And what do they got? So what's going on here? And worship. Trust and worship. Good answer. This is a worship setting. Where do we see water in worship? At the baptismal font. So back in chapter 5, the very first scene of worship, we were at the throne. We were at the pulpit. And then over in 9, when we returned to a big scene of worship, we were at the altar. Remember all the saints gathered at the altar and the ones crying out from under the altar? And now we're at the baptismal font. Now I tell you, remember just like his nativity story didn't look like anything like Matthew or Luke, his baptism looks a lot different. What does fire do? Purifies. And isn't that a sign? I just baptized babies this morning through the sacrament of baptism. We're initiated into Christ's holy church and given new birth by water and the Spirit. All this is, we're made clean. The waters wash us clean. Here, signified by the fire coming out of the water. Okay. So, this is the baptismal water, a baptism of judgment on sin and the gift of salvation. Yeah. And what are they singing? They are singing a new song. They sing the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb. Great and amazing are your deeds, Lord God Almighty, just and true are your ways, King of the nations, Lord, who will not fear and glorify your name, for you alone are holy. All nations will come and worship before you, and your judgments have been revealed. Exact opposite of what emperor worship would have them do. Okay? Now, I told you, John knows his scriptures. Here's the song of Moses from Exodus 16. We're not going to look at it right now, but we will compare the two. So look at here. The song that they sing in Revelation, I love this comparison. The song of Moses was sung beside the Red Sea. The song of the Lamb is sung beside the Crystal Sea. The song of Moses was sung over Egypt. The song of the Lamb will be sung over Babylon. The song of Moses describes how God brought his people out, and the song of Lamb will describe how God brings his people in. The song of Moses was Scripture's first song, and the song of the Lamb is Scripture's last song. Isn't that cool? Yeah, it is. All right. The context, though, is worship. So while we get all these wild images and hear about tribulation and all this same thing, really, Revelation, the book of Revelation, is about worship. It begins and it keeps coming back to worship as all this is played out. And I looked, and the temple of the tent of witness in heaven was open, and out of the temple came 7 angels with 7 plagues, robed in pure white linen, with golden sashes across their chests. And one of the 4 living creatures gave the 7 angels 7 bowls full of the wrath of God, who lives forever and ever. And the temple was filled with the smoke from the glory of God and power, so no one could enter until the 7 plagues are ended. Now we go through these bowls, which are the plagues, which are like the 10 plagues visited on Egypt. And the problem with the Egyptians wasn't that they were bad people. They wouldn't let the Israelites go worship. Go back and read Exodus. They keep asking, let us go 3 days' journey into the desert and worship our God. Okay? In fact, I really doubt the Israelites wanted to leave Egypt because that's all they knew. And remember when they got out in the wilderness, they fussed at Moses and said, hey, we had it pretty good back there. We had meat in our pots and we had all this. Now you brought us out here in the desert to die. So the first deal was just get them out here in the desert, and then when Pharaoh's army comes chasing after them, then there's no going back. But the real thing that sparked all this was not the people saying we want to go to some promised land somewhere we've never seen and don't really believe in. It was, let us go worship our God. And Pharaoh wouldn't let them do it. You see how that ties in with the persecution going on and they don't get to worship God? Told you worship was central, and it really is. All right. And this is like the seals. The first 4 come really quickly, and then it kind of slows down. And I guess we'll take that up next week. Let me find a place here to mark. Chapter 16:1 is where we will. Okay? All right. Oh, here's a note here. You know, about the baptismal waters and fire. I said they cleanse. What does bleach do when it meets a stain? It gets rid of it. And that's an image there. Okay, we'll take it up, chapter 16, and the 4 bowls being poured out when we come back next week.